I sure do feel nice this morning, Mark. I sure do. Let me tell you, I sure do.
I feel like there's some sort of cultural appropriation. Like someone somewhere is going to be offended by that.
Well, I'm just going back to those people that used to wake up and hear the cock sing and just started the day on a good note. And I tried to channel that. It's early in the morning. We're doing this live. And yeah. How do you feel? How's your Thursday?
It's going pretty great. I'm boarding a plane in a little bit. Going to be heading out there, so that's exciting.
So today we have on a friend of mine. She was a child tennis star.
Wow.
Something like this. She grew up playing tennis nonstop, almost every day. And there's this new tennis movie coming out where Zendaya is like a sex addict. She has threesomes, something like that. Forget exactly. I think it's called Challenger. And I thought to myself, maybe I could get a porn star on the show. And then I realized we already had the OnlyFans girl. And then I said, all right, well, the next subject in the movie, I guess, is tennis. So let me find someone. Yeah, and I called Morgan.
Well, my question is, you said she was a child tennis prodigy. Is she actually an adult now? Because yesterday we literally had a child on. I don't know if we could do that 2 days in a row.
Yeah, that's true. She is an adult.
Okay, that's good.
She is an adult, so that makes me feel good. At least
that definitely makes me feel like we're not violating any child labor laws.
Yeah, and at least the guest vocabulary will be more than 5 words.
This should be more pleasant to listen to. Great.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's bring her in. Morgan, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
How do you feel, Morgan? Are you you're happy to be here?
I'm very happy to be here.
I like it when people say, I'm happy to be here. I didn't hear you say that, so I wasn't so...
I see. I'll be sure to do that next time if you have
great.
me again.
If we bring you on again. I mean, don't be so sure after.
I know. I'm a little overconfident.
If we do. So how long has it been since you played tennis?
I play for fun now, but I started playing when I was 4, and I played all the way up through high school, and I quit, I would say, that professional type of playing right in the middle of high school. So ever since high school, it's been just sort of on and off. But prior to that, very competitive. It was my entire life.
So why?
So did you hit a peak? Were you not good once you hit high school? You just weren't good enough anymore?
Or were you just a quitter?
Or to stack onto that, or were you now involved in threesomes and things like Zendaya?
This is a 4-part question. Please answer everything in order.
Yeah, so no threesomes that I can recall. And I would have to say I quit mainly because it came to the point where I actually would have had to quit going to school altogether because my coaches wanted me to drop out of school and play professionally and do pro circuits. And it became a question of either that or school. So I didn't really want to go to college and play tennis at the same time. I felt like it would be too much. So I made the decision to, quit, and that was that.
So the threesome that you don't recall, is that because...
There wasn't one. That's because there wasn't one.
Okay.
It's an interesting qualifier to your answer, so of course we have to follow. Like, what kind of journalists would we be?
I know.
If we didn't notice that and follow up.
I'll clarify, there wasn't one.
This is a serious program
that I want to talk about.
That I want to talk about. But there were a lot of balls involved either way.
Yeah, that would be an accurate statement, technically speaking.
Okay. Did you ever have problems with dogs running onto the court to chase the balls? Because I could imagine that'd be a problem.
I can't say I have, no.
Okay.
Well, dogs would need access to the tennis court, Mark.
Yeah, they'd have to register for the tournament if they wanted to get on the court. So.
Well, I figure with all these new inclusivity things, they'd keep dogs around just in case.
What, like therapy dogs?
Yeah, therapy dogs. Tennis
Could
therapy.
work.
I think my tennis years might predate the therapy dogs. It's a little too early for that.
Yeah, there's already plenty of love in tennis anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
There
you
sure
don't need
is.
dogs for that.
So Morgan, are you a billionaire? Because tennis is sort of it's an uppity sport, right? It's for
Yes.
the prim and proper.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that is true. It's a very expensive sport, I would say, in comparison to, like most of the sports that people would play growing up. Golf is very expensive. Tennis is very expensive. They consider them like the country club sports. And if just to go based on what I know, if you're someone who's playing competitively, you have private lessons, which range anywhere from 120 per hour up. You have group
How high are
lessons.
we talking? 2, 3, 4,000 an hour?
No, not 4,000 an hour, but they're, like you have to pay for the court and you also have to pay for the pro that you're working with. So you have that combined cost, and 1 hour could probably on average, if you're with a really good coach, they can charge, like 200 up for the court and their instruction just for an hour. You have to do that multiple times per week. And then on top of that, you usually do some kind of group practice session as well. And, that's going to run you a couple hundred each week. So that's usually like a 2 to 3 hour like group session. And then you have the tournaments too. So you have to fund the travel. You have to fund possibly bringing your coach to that tournament. There's all these registration fees. And then also the equipment, the rackets, the bags, the sneakers, the clothes, everything.
So you're a
Wow.
billionaire is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I wish I was, but no.
It definitely sounds like quite the racket with all the stuff that you have to spend money on. Now, the person who runs these courts, do you have to address them as Your Honor, or is it more casual?
It's a little more casual. They just take your entrance fee, and then they throw you onto a court to play against someone who you've probably played a million times before.
Okay. And there's no powdered wigs involved either, or robes?
I feel like it would make the sport a little more interesting sometimes, for sure. It would kind of switch it up a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I get my courts confused a lot. So again, we have no idea what's flying, especially
Yeah,
anything.
we're talking about tennis.
Okay. Okay.
Talking
and
about
that's
tennis.
that's the one with the ball and the racket.
Yeah, that's the one with
Got
the
it.
ball.
Racket.
There
ball.
are judges,
Got it.
though. There's judges. You have line judges close
And
enough to
so-
the regular court.
And they just do cocaine the whole time?
Well, they're not usually paying attention. Actually, that's something that's very interesting, is because if you watch, the US Open, for example, on TV, you'll see that they have referees. Everything's very put together, beautiful venue. And that's not actually the case with, under 18 tournaments. When you're kind of on your way up, you're essentially your own referee, and you can only request a ref if there's a discrepancy or, you're not in agreement with the other person. And then even then, sometimes they're not exactly helpful because they're not always paying attention. So it's not as glamorous as what you see on TV, for sure.
So cocaine would help then?
Maybe it would
Okay.
help them zone in, pay attention a little more.
Quiet. Sorry, my dog. So your family invested a lot in you to take lessons. You started when you said 4 years old. Is this something that you wanted to do, or your parents just sort of said, here's this big thing that looks like a giant, I don't know, round oval spatula. Go have fun with this random stranger that's called a pro?
So I did start when I was 4. It was really just for fun, just to see if I liked it. I just had signed up for some group lesson at a park, and it was a bunch of other kids. And then I
So
continued
you were
doing
just you were roaming a park alone as a 4-year-old.
Yes.
Came across
Someone in a windowless van comes up and says,
And
hey,
says,
yeah.
"Hey,
want
wanna
to
play
see my
tennis?"
green furry balls? Yeah. Got it.
Exactly how that went down. And no, but I was good at it when I first started, and I just continued to take lessons as sort of a hobby. And then when I got to the age that you can actually start to play real USTA tournaments, my parents said, like, oh, why don't we'll give it a try just to see how it goes. I wasn't expecting anything at all because I didn't know the skill level to expect. And tennis tournaments are typically split into 3 levels. So you've got level 3, which is like your kind of round robin easiest. Then it goes 2, 1, and then you have your sectionals and nationals. And that was a level 3. So it was like your most intro level. but I won that one. So then it was just from there, it kept, becoming an increasingly large part of my life. I mean, I left school early on Fridays to travel to tournaments. I would leave school right after school was practice from maybe 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. My entire summer practice was every day, like 7 a.m. to 5
Yeah, we got
p.m.
it. You worked hard. You worked hard. We got it.
You worked hard.
Yeah, you don't need to,
Rub
tone
it
it
in.
down. Yeah, you don't have to impress anyone. We get it.
I'm not.
You were good.
I'm
We're
not,
already very
definitely not
impressed.
trying to impress.
Yeah,
We're impressed by
at
your
the fact
headphones.
That,
I'm more
right.
shocked by it.
Yeah,
You have
I
the
do
same
have a
headphones.
serious question.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched tennis on TV several times, and I've noticed there's a lot of grunting and borderline sensual
Yes.
noises. What is that? Is there a purpose to that, or they're just trying to get ratings?
No, they're coming
Oh,
as they swing, Mark. We don't even need her to answer the question.
okay.
We
All
can
right,
move
we
on.
can go past that. That was a terrible question. I'm sorry, Morgan.
It's okay. But no, that's
No,
not
but
what's
yeah, answer
happening.
the question because
Yeah,
now,
please
now I'm
tell us.
second guessing what
Yeah.
I always thought was
No.
just an on-court orgasm.
Yeah.
So some people grunt excessively, and in a way they're also trying to just distract their opponent. Some people do it because it's just, I don't know, they hit the ball and it just happens. And then other times people do it excessively to the point where it's just like they're trying to throw off the other person. It's a little theatrical. So people definitely have their own tactics to just throw off the game. And that is definitely one of them. I personally, I found it to be a waste of energy, if anything, because what's the point of it? I never really did, but some people play that way.
And so they throw off the other player by arousing them?
Yes, exactly. Just,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it.
That makes sense. So, I guess if you're a lesbian, it wouldn't be so easy to compete because you would be constantly distracted by the sensual sounds of the opponent.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know, but maybe.
Did you ever at least experiment with these sounds or?
No, honestly, no. I hate to disappoint.
What about
That's
you,
okay.
Victor? You ever play
So-
tennis? Let's hear your grunt.
Ugh.
Yeah. Okay.
How was that?
It was
pretty
pretty
good.
good.
I
Yeah,
That was
think
more.
yeah, listen.
That was more masculine than I thought it would be. I'm impressed.
There you go. So you're 6 years old, you're playing tennis, and you're competing in games at a young age.
Yes.
This is interesting because at that age, oftentimes you're just sort of participating, you're not paying attention to actually winning games. So what's that like as a 6-year-old suddenly trying to defeat someone? Were you mean? Did you become like a, raging, bitch?
Rageaholic.
There
Yeah,
were a
rageaholic.
lot of those. There were a lot of those. So I think the moment that I realized that tennis was not this nice all the time sport that I thought it was I think I was about 8 or 9, and I was playing against this girl who was my age, and I was winning, and she was ranked higher than me at the time. So obviously not ideal situation for her. And then right when I was about to win, she just looks over the net and she's like, "Fuck you." And this is coming from an 8 or 9-year-old, and me
Wow.
having
Wow.
never experienced this, I'm just standing there like, what just happened? And she gave me the finger, and I was like, what is going on? And then I told my mom after the fact because she thought it was just like, oh, how was your game? And I was like, well, she said this to me. And yeah, I've seen a lot of things, and I think that's the moment where I realized it's not always going to be, sportsmanlike.
Mm-hmm.
So
Some people say that when you take steroids, you have roid rage, that it increases the temper. Do you think this 8 or 9-year-old could have been, juiced up?
there were definitely, maybe not this particular one, but there were definitely instances where I knew of parents who were more likely than not giving their kids some kind of steroid or supplement or something. Like, for example, I had played this one Russian girl who was very short, very cute, very unassuming looking. She kind of looked like Boo from Monsters, Inc., so we called her Boo. And then when I actually played a match against her and we both came to the net to figure out who was going to serve first, her voice was like 3 octaves lower than mine. And then I look and
Whoa.
her father was like the 7-foot tall Eastern European guy, and it was
Wow.
just so intimidating. And it became like a regular thing where you kind of get used to these parents who almost live through their kid, trying to see them become successful and like at whatever cost. So
Mhm.
yeah.
So they're a lot like pageant moms.
Yes, actually, there was a time where they were actually considering making a show very similar to Dance Moms, but for tennis. So they had started getting casting directors involved and stuff, and it would be a very similar thing to that, where you see little kids playing tennis and kind of exposing the, I guess, darker side of it.
Wow.
Wow.
But it never happened. But
Quiet on the court, huh?
yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good name. We should
Yeah.
trademark that. Is everything we do on this episode copyrighted, Mark? Because we may have just
I don't
found
know.
ourselves a gold mine.
I don't know. I feel like this is too public for anything to be copywritten.
So, Morgan, when you said you're at the net deciding who's going to serve, how does that work? Is that just like a conversation? Like you introduce each other, like talk about what you're into, like what your favorite movies are, and then you just sort of come to a common ground and you're like, okay, I'll let you serve. You seem cool.
You know, I wish it went like that. Usually it's just you kind of meet at the net. There's this weird attitude between the two of you because you're not supposed to like each other. Then you flip the racket and see which way the logo is.
Oh,
and,
okay.
you know, if it's Wilson, if you get a W, you know, if I call W and I flip the racket and it lands upwards, then I get to decide I want to serve or I want them to serve. So, you know, if they have a particularly weak serve, you tell them, okay, you can serve first. So it just depends on the game, but no pleasantries.
Do they have trick rackets? Like sometimes they have trick coins, like in Magic, where it's like double-headed.
Just always lands on
Yeah, it
on
always
W.
lands on Wilson. Why don't you just get one of those?
You know, not that I know of, but I'm sure if you created that and you sold it, you could make some money off of that but it might throw the rest of your game off because having a weighted racket to one side would not be good.
Well, it would just be the W. So this way, anyway
Yeah.
it drops. Doesn't have to be weighted. You're overthinking it. You got to
Well,
connect with someone like me offline who could help you with
It's
something
like
like
the-
that.
All right.
It's like
Okay.
the center
Just the bottom
hubcaps.
piece. Yeah.
It's like the center hubcaps on a Rolls Royce that always like show the logo face up.
Gotcha.
So you just do that part. There's another $1 million idea on this podcast, Victor. What are we doing here?
Well, what you do, you two are two billionaires. This Rolls Royce talk, I can't really
Whatever.
relate. I had a
Well,
Honda.
I was
so-
talking about this with Morgan at the country club yesterday. And, okay.
over some caviar. So, 6 years old, 7 years old, the girl curses you out. What race was she? Just out of curiosity.
I don't remember. The thing is though with
Okay,
tennis,
so she was definitely Asian.
no,
No, I'm just
no.
kidding.
But the thing is with tennis though, it's like you have people from all over the world too who come to America and like they put their kids in tennis because it's actually a very popular sport in Europe especially. So the one thing you will see is a lot of parents coaching their kids in another language because you're not supposed to be talking to your kid while they're on the court because it's against the rules, but you know, parents will act like they're talking to someone else but really be talking through the curtain to their kid, telling them instructions or whatever on how to beat the other person. So there's a lot of that.
So there's a lot of Europeans, not a lot of Asians, is basically the answer to the question that Victor asked. So
Thanks. Yeah,
I-
Mark's
I
our
ju-
investigative
I am.
host. Yeah, he'll get to
I'm
the bottom
curious.
of it.
I don't think there's a lot of Asians in golf either because stereotypically Asians aren't very good drivers.
Yeah, that's a fine joke. I'll allow that joke.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
also, in all seriousness, I was reading about this on Wikipedia. Actually, the Asian eyes, because you need to have really good sight in golf to see far, because the eyes are so small, it's very hard to see far. I read that on Wikipedia. That's why there's
that was
only a
actually
few
on
Asians.
Wikipedia.
Yeah, there's only very few Asians in golf for that
Well,
reason.
Tiger Woods is half.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Have you met Tiger Woods, Morgan?
I can't say I have, no.
She plays. This is tennis, Mark. Stay
Okay.
focused.
Well, I don't know. All right. What's the most famous tennis player you've met or played against?
Well, I mean, I haven't played against any of the common names that people know. But like growing up, when I would practice, I used to practice at the National Tennis Center, which is where they have the U.S. Open. And
Oh, cool.
it was very interesting because while I would be having, my lesson with my coach, on the next court over, more often than not, there would be someone who is pretty famous. So I've met Federer, Nadal, and there were times where like Andy Roddick would be on the court next to me, and I
Wow.
remember.
Does he have the best moans? Because he's Andy Roddick.
It's a
Name
great
sounds
question.
like. Did you
I
ever
have
see?
no idea what that means.
Did
What
you
does
ever?
that mean?
Well, his name sounds like and erotic, but did you ever see Anna Kournikova on the next Cordova?
No, but I did meet Maria Sharapova, and she signed a T-shirt for me, so I
Wow.
still have that somewhere.
Wow.
And I remember one time I was playing next to John McEnroe, and I was also in his brother's, Patrick McEnroe's player development program. So he was one of my coaches for a period of time as well while I was there. So that was very interesting too.
And despite all that, you still gave it up.
Sure did.
Do you regret giving up tennis? Do you see yourself like wondering, what if I was a tennis pro?
Were you trying to bring out some demons?
Yeah.
No, I'm just
that's
trying
what
to bring
he's
out-
trying to do.
Bring
The
up some
truth.
tears. This is
Yeah.
it's an engaging podcast.
Yeah, we get it.
No, honestly,
I forgot
though,
what I was gonna ask, yeah.
but I can't say that I regret it because it really did become that decision of professional tennis or school. And I feel like with professional tennis, it's either, you're 100% going to be playing in the US Open and you're at that level. And if you're not one of those top like 0.001% players, then you're kind of operating at a loss, because the only way you make enough money to sustain that kind of career is if you are at the very, very top. And I was very much up there, but I don't know if I'm like, that Serena Williams level of like future ahead of me. So it didn't really make sense to invest all of that time and money only to not do it for a career. So, and plus I had a lot of things that I was interested in studying for school, so it made sense at the time.
Do you
What's
think
with
that?
Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
Go,
No, go.
Do you think that if you were black, you could have been the next Venus or Serena Williams? Like if you
It's a
had
good
that,
question.
if you had the opposite procedure that Michael Jackson had?
Possibly.
I don't know if my skill level was quite Serena Williams, but
She
we'll
was
never
very
know.
masculine, so I think
She's a very good player.
yeah.
But I
that
mean,
too.
you play
But
tennis
it's
a lot, you
mostly
build
the
up some
skin.
muscles.
I think we can all agree,
Yeah.
skill only takes you so far.
Well, and that's what they say. Beauty is skin deep. Tennis ability is also skin deep. It's a saying that's as old as time.
Yeah. So, Morgan, what's with the whole point system? Why is it 0, 20, 10, love, 40s? Why isn't it just 1, 2, 3, 4, game over?
Very confusing.
That
Very
can make it
confusing.
a lot simpler, but it's 0, which is love, 15, 30, 40, and then game. And that's each game within the set. And then you have to, at least for women's tennis, you play best 2 out of 3 sets, and men's is best 3 out of 5. So the men have to play twice as much, basically, which is interesting. But that's just how it's scored. But
Do you think that it's because they want to keep the poor kids out?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, the more
will make it
advanced
difficult for them?
people, they make it more difficult to comprehend so that the
Some-
more educated people can stay in the game.
Some sort of tennis gatekeeping.
Do you think that that's possible, Morgan, with the blue headphones?
You know what? I'd have to ask the creators of tennis, because I don't know off the top of my head. But it would make sense that they, didn't want it to be a sport for everyone.
So why did you eventually stop? You weren't good enough? And how does it feel to work so hard at something and then realize, you know what, it was all a waste of time, or I suck, or, I could have been doing something much better with my life. Where do I go from here? How do I explain this to people and just, really feel like a failure? And if you don't feel like
That's-
a failure, you then
Why
go on a
not?
podcast and realize that maybe you were. How does that all feel?
That's such a great question considering. No, you know, I have to I wouldn't say that.
And do you regret not at least having a threesome?
Okay, I quit when I was in sophomore year of high school, so that's not something that I was ever considering. And for the time that I was playing tennis seriously, at the time there was a point where I was like, for my age range, like 30 something in the country, which it's solid to look back on. I feel like it was a good accomplishment and it served me well at the time. And also, I was probably in the greatest shape of my life while I played tennis because the physical training was so intense. So there were a lot of good aspects to it, and I feel like it was a kind of complete chapter there. But I don't have a desire to go back and ever be like, oh man, I really wish I played professionally. Like, wish I went to the U.S. Open. And I knew people who that's all they wanted, and they sucked. So.
But are you planning on seeing the Zendaya tennis sex movie?
I would kind of, why I want to see it? I want to see it because it's really funny to me sometimes when actors are brought in for a sport type movie and they're trained to, learn the sport a little bit. And tennis is a sport that is very difficult to fake because if the swing isn't right or the grip on the racket is wrong, like it'll be really, really obvious to someone who plays tennis. So I kind of want to see it just for that because it could be very interesting.
Well, I'm sure she'll get the grip down because they wouldn't put her in the sex movie if she couldn't grip things.
Tennis rackets.
Tennis racket. But also, Morgan, you could just be honest with us. You're seeing the movie for the same reason. Everyone's seeing the movie. You don't need to, cover it up with. You want to see skills and all that. Just, you want to see the fucking Zendaya sex movie.
I heard there's no actual sex scenes in it, though. It's kind of implied, and the trailer makes people think that, oh, it's going to be this super steamy movie, and then it seems like people are kind of disappointed because they go in expecting that, and it's kind of like that fade to black where they imply things happen, but they don't actually go into it, and people went to it for that reason. So
bait and
is it out
switch.
already?
yeah, it's been out for I think about a week.
It's a bait and switch, or in this case, a master bait and switch. Masterful use. Yes, that's what I was going for.
Did you see that Uncle Tom movie?
What?
With Will Smith, Uncle King Tom?
What?
It was King Richard.
Oh, King Richard?
King Dick. Yes.
King Richard.
Yes, I did see that movie, and that was actually a very good movie because, it goes into the story of like Venus and Serena Williams and how tennis is such an expensive sport and it's not something that's accessible for everyone. So he was their coach for a very long time, and I actually thought that was a really good movie.
Did it have enough of an impact on you that after you watched it, you went and donated to charities for young black girls who want to learn tennis?
Is that what that was? Was that like a vehicle for people to do that?
I'd assume so.
I didn't see any ask for
Is there a
donations.
charity for young black girls that want to learn how to play tennis, or is that too specific?
No, actually, there are programs because tennis is generally a very inaccessible sport. Honestly, unless you're like, I knew people who could afford, to bring their private coach with them everywhere, which, isn't something that I did, but there are some really, really wealthy people who play tennis and it's not accessible. So it makes sense, honestly, that there's, ways of helping other people play.
Well, on that note, I think that's a great place to put down the racket. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Morgan.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into today's episode. You can follow us on Instagram at What's Flying. Is that what it is, Mark?
It's at What's Flying. You can check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/What's Flying. You can follow Victor at Victor Dweck and myself at Mark Herman Comedy. Yeah,
you got one post up.
I got one post because no one's following.
It's forget about it. It's the Instagram account of the moment.
It really is. It really is.
All right. Take care, everyone.
See you tomorrow.